Admiral Kextar sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, staring at the holographic display that showed a small blue planet spinning peacefully in the void. His three eyes narrowed as he read through the reports for the fourth time that day. The humans had done it again, rejected another attempt at peaceful contact from the Galactic Council. Insolent creatures, he muttered under his breath. His aide, Commander Vexilon, shifted nervously beside him. The commander had served under Kextar for over 2 decades, and knew that tone well. It meant someone was about to have a very bad day. The planet Earth hung before them like a jewel, but Kextar knew better. The Council's scientists had classified it as a Class 12 death world, one of the most hostile environments they had ever catalogued. The gravity alone was nearly double what most civilized species could handle for extended periods. The atmosphere contained pockets of gases that would burn the lungs of most Council races. Massive storms regularly swept across its surface with winds that could tear apart buildings. The oceans teemed with creatures so large and aggressive that they defied belief. And yet, somehow, the humans not only survived there, they flourished. "Admiral," Commander Vexilon said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans have refused our diplomatic offers 3 times. Now, maybe they simply don't understand what we're offering them." Kextar's laugh was cold and sharp. "What's not to understand? We offer them protection, advanced technology, and membership in the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. In return, they simply need to acknowledge Council authority and follow our laws. It's the same offer we've made to over 600 species." But the humans had said no. Not just no, they had politely but firmly told the Council ambassadors that Earth would remain independent. They thanked the Council for their generous offer, but explained that humanity preferred to chart its own course among the stars. "There, barely past nuclear age," Vexilon continued, pulling up the technical assessments. "Look at this data, Admiral. Their most advanced warriors still use chemical projectiles, bullets fired from metal tubes. They strap explosives to flying machines and call it advanced warfare. Their space technology is primitive at best. How can such a backward species possibly believe they can stand against the Council?" Kextar studied the reports more closely. Human soldiers carried weapons that seemed laughably crude compared to Council energy weapons, where Council warriors wore powered armor that could deflect plasma bursts. Humans wore simple fabric and metal plates. Their vehicles ran on chemical combustion rather than clean fusion power. By every measure the Council used to evaluate military capability, humanity should have been easy to intimidate into submission. "Deploy Strike Force Omega," Kextar decided. "A quick demonstration of our capabilities should convince them to be more reasonable. We'll hit one of their outer colonies. Nothing too destructive, just enough to show them the futility of resistance." Vexilon nodded and began issuing orders. Strike Force Omega was one of their finest units, equipped with the latest technology and staffed by veterans from multiple successful campaigns. They would land on a human colony world, disable some infrastructure, capture a few local leaders, and be back aboard their ships within hours. The humans would see the overwhelming superiority of Council forces and quickly agree to negotiations. What neither Kextar nor Vexilon knew was that their communications had been intercepted and decoded weeks ago. Down on the surface of New Brisbane, Colony, Captain James Mitchell was already preparing his response. Mitchell had spent 15 years with the British Special Air Service before being recruited for Earth's first interplanetary special operations unit. The man had parachuted into war zones that would have killed most aliens before they hit the ground. He had survived in deserts where the daytime temperature regularly exceeded what most Council species could endure, and Arctic conditions that would freeze alien blood solid. His team was equally impressive. Master Sergeant Rebecca Thompson had completed 3 combat tours in some of Earth's most hostile environments before joining the Navy SEALs. She had learned to fight in jungles so dense and dangerous that Council xenobiologists classified them as uninhabitable. Staff Sergeant David Clark had spent years perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare in conflicts across Earth's most challenging terrain. These weren't just soldiers, they were survivors of a world that had been trying to kill them since birth. Every human who reached adulthood had already passed a survival test that would eliminate most galactic species. Earth's crushing gravity had made them stronger. Its deadly weather had made them adaptable. Its dangerous predators had sharpened their reflexes and tactical thinking. The Galactic Council looked at Earth and saw a primitive, hostile world that had held back human development. What they failed to understand was that surviving such a world hadn't weakened humanity. It had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before, as Strike Force Omega prepared for what they expected to be a routine intimidation mission. Captain Mitchell and his team were turning the colony into a trap. The Council was about to learn that there was a very good reason why no one in the galaxy's history had ever successfully conquered a Deathworld species. The sleek Council dropships cut through New Birmingham's morning sky like silver daggers, their anti-gravity engines humming with barely contained power. Commander Vexilon watched the colony approach through his tactical display, confident this would be over quickly. Intelligence reports showed a population of roughly 50,000 humans scattered across this backwater mining world. A few precision strikes, some property damage, maybe capture their local government officials, and the humans would understand who really controlled this sector of space. Remember, Vexilon broadcast to his troops, "We want them scared, not extinct. Minimal casualties. This is a demonstration of power, not a massacre." The first dropship touched down in the colony's main square, expecting crowds of panicked civilians running in terror. Instead, they found empty streets lined with abandoned shops and homes. The silence was wrong somehow, not the quiet of evacuation, but the stillness of a predator waiting to strike. Vexilon's enhanced sensors swept the area repeatedly. No heat signatures, no electromagnetic readings from human technology, no signs of life anywhere within a kilometer radius. Yet something felt off. His warrior instincts, honed through decades of combat, screamed that they were walking into a trap, sir, reported Lieutenant Kekstar from the lead walker unit. The streets are completely deserted. It's like they just vanished into thin air. Impossible, Vexilon replied. 50,000 beings don't just disappear. Expand the search pattern. Check every building, every basement, every possible hiding spot. What the commander didn't know was that Sergeant Lisa Evans was watching them through her rifle scope from a position that shouldn't have existed. The empty ruins she occupied had been a 3-story apartment building until 2 days ago. Now, it was a carefully constructed sniper's nest, designed to look like random debris while providing perfect sight lines to the landing zone. Evans had grown up hunting deer in the mountains of Colorado, where missing your first shot often meant going hungry. She had served 2 tours with the Army Rangers in environments so hostile that her current hiding spot felt like a luxury resort. The young woman could remain motionless for hours, invisible to scanning equipment that had never been designed to detect someone who had learned camouflage from Earth's most dangerous predators. Dawn broke across the colony just as the Council forces began their systematic sweep. That's when Evans squeezed her trigger. The high-velocity round struck the energy pack of the lead walker with surgical precision. The resulting explosion was spectacular, a chain reaction that rippled through the alien formation like dominoes. Falling, 2 additional walkers disappeared in balls of superheated plasma, while a third toppled over from the shockwave. Its crew trapped inside by the time the smoke cleared and the survivors turned their weapons toward Evans's position. She was already gone. The building that had concealed her for hours was now genuinely empty ruins. "Contact! Contact!" screamed voices over the Council communication channels. "Sniper fire from Sector 7. We're taking heavy casualties. Vexilon felt his confidence cracking. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Where were the panicked civilians? Where were the primitive soldiers with their crude weapons? How had a single shooter eliminated 3 of his most advanced combat vehicles? How are they moving so quickly? He demanded, as another unit reported taking fire from a completely different direction. The attackers seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, striking like lightning and vanishing before his forces could respond. The answer was simpler than Vexilon could imagine. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hayes was currently leading his reconnaissance team through the colony's storm drainage system, moving through tunnels that would have been tight squeezes for most aliens, but felt spacious to humans accustomed to Earth's caves and sewers. Hayes had spent years perfecting urban warfare in environments that made this abandoned colony look like a playground. The man had led missions through Siberian winters, where the temperature dropped so low that exposed alien skin would freeze solid in minutes. He had operated in African deserts where the midday heat would cook most council species alive inside their own armor. Moving unseen through empty human buildings was barely a challenge for someone who had learned to be invisible in Earth's most hostile environments. Captain Janet Williams had been busy too, while the council forces focused on the sniper attacks. She had worked her way to their command vehicle, using techniques learned from years of demolitions work. The improvised explosive device she attached to their communications array was built from mining equipment that the retreating colonists had deliberately left behind. When it detonated, the command walker didn't just explode, it turned into a beacon of electromagnetic interference that blinded every council sensor in a 3-kilometer radius. Sergeant Major Tom Bradley and his sniper team had positioned themselves in what appeared to be impossible locations, the tops of mining towers that Council intelligence had reported as unstable. What they hadn't understood was that humans routinely worked in conditions that would terrify most galactic species. Bradley's men were comfortable hanging from cables hundreds of meters above the ground, taking precision shots that Council marksmen couldn't even attempt. One by one, the alien officers fell to bullets fired from angles that shouldn't have been possible. As the hours passed, Vexilon watched his elite strike force Omega get systematically dismantled by an enemy they could barely see. These weren't the frightened primitives he had expected. These were predators who had turned his superior technology against him, using the colony itself as a weapon. The final transmission from Strike Force Omega was barely coherent, panicked. Reports of ghost soldiers who appeared from nowhere, struck with impossible precision, and vanished before retaliation was possible. Then the signal went dead, leaving only static where 50 of the Council's finest warriors had once been. Back on the flagship, Admiral Kekstar stared at the empty communication channel in disbelief. His demonstration of power had become a demonstration of human lethality instead. The news of Strike Force Omega's complete annihilation sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council chambers. Admiral Kekstar found himself standing before the High Command, trying to explain how 50 of their best soldiers had been wiped out by what they still insisted on calling primitive Deathworlders. "This is unacceptable," declared Prime Council Leader Yexnera, her voice echoing through the crystalline chamber. "Our reputation is at stake. If word spreads that humans defeated a full strike force, other species might begin questioning our authority." The solution was obvious to everyone present. If regular Council forces couldn't handle these humans, they would send their ultimate weapon, the Void Hunters. War Master Nethkal received his orders with grim satisfaction. The Void Hunters were legend throughout Council space. Enhanced warriors who had conquered 17 star systems without losing a single operative. Each hunter had been surgically modified with enhanced reflexes that could process information 10 times faster than organic beings. Their eyes could see across multiple light spectrums simultaneously. Their bones had been replaced with metal alloys stronger than most starship hulls. These humans got lucky once, Nethkal told his assembled team of 20 elite hunters. They ambushed regular forces who underestimated them. We will not make the same mistake. The hunters spent weeks tracking human forces across 3 star systems, following energy signatures and supply caches. Their enhanced senses eventually led them to asteroid facility Echo 7, a mining station that appeared abandoned but showed signs of recent human activity. Nethcall studied the facility through his enhanced vision as their stealth ship approached. Echo 7 was a typical human industrial complex, functional but crude, built into the rock of a kilometer-wide asteroid. Thermal scans showed power signatures in the lower levels, suggesting the humans were using it as a base of operations. Perfect, the War Master decided. They've trapped themselves in a confined space with limited escape routes. We'll flush them out, level by level. What Nethcall didn't know was that Major Andrew Foster had been waiting for exactly this kind of attack for weeks. Foster had spent 15 years as a Royal Marine, specializing in urban warfare environments that made most aliens queasy just thinking about them. He had fought in bombed-out cities, where every doorway might hide an enemy, in subway tunnels flooded with toxic water, in collapsed buildings where moving the wrong piece of debris could bring tons of concrete down on your head. To Foster, Echo 7 wasn't just a mining facility. It was the ultimate killing field. The moment human sensors detected the approaching hunter ship, Foster put his plan into motion. Every corridor, every room, every ventilation shaft had been carefully mapped and modified over the past month. What looked like a normal industrial complex was actually an elaborate maze, designed to channel attackers exactly where the humans wanted them to go. Remember, Foster told his team over their encrypted communication system, these aren't regular aliens. They're enhanced, which means they're faster and stronger than anything we've faced before. But they're also overconfident. We use that against them. The Void Hunters breached the facility's outer airlocks with textbook precision. Their enhanced senses immediately detected human heat signatures deeper in the complex, and they moved to engage with the fluid grace of apex predators. The first hunter died less than 10 minutes after entry. Staff Sergeant Michelle Roberts had been monitoring the facility's artificial gravity generators from the control room, waiting for the perfect moment. The moment the lead hunter entered Corridor C7, she triggered a cascade failure that sent gravity levels spiking to 3 times Earth normal. The enhanced warrior, built for speed and agility, suddenly found himself weighing nearly half a ton. His reinforced skeleton held, but his organic joints and muscles couldn't handle the sudden stress. He collapsed to the deck, his cybernetic enhancements useless against the crushing weight. For Roberts, who had grown up under Earth's heavy gravity, the increased pull was barely noticeable. She moved through the corridor easily, checking to make sure the alien was down for good before resetting the gravity to normal levels. First one's down, she reported calmly. They're coming through sectors C and D now. Colonel Kevin Thompson had spent the past month turning Eco 7's mining tunnels into a demolitions expert's dream. Every support beam, every junction, every seemingly innocent piece of industrial equipment had been rigged with carefully placed charges. Thompson had learned his trade clearing tunnels in Afghanistan, where one wrong move could collapse a mountain on top of you. When the next group of hunters advanced through what their sensors told them was a secure passage, Sergeant First Class Jason Miller triggered the first sequence of explosions. The charges didn't just detonate. They created a chain reaction that turned the tunnel system into a weapon. The hunters' enhanced reflexes, their greatest advantage, became their downfall. Moving faster than normal beings, they rushed deeper into the passages just as Thompson's charges went off in sequence. The explosions channeled through the tunnels faster than even cybernetically enhanced reactions could compensate for. 3 more hunters died in the collapse. Their advanced armor, useless against tons of falling rock. War-Master. Nethcall realized too late that his forces were being systematically eliminated. These humans weren't fighting like regular soldiers. They were fighting like the facility itself was alive, and trying to kill anything that didn't belong there. "Retreat to defensive positions," he ordered, but there were no defensive positions. Every room the hunters entered had been turned into a trap. Every corridor led to carefully prepared kill zones. The humans weren't just defending their base, they had weaponized it. Lieutenant Patricia Wells demonstrated just how deadly human adaptability could be when she used the facility's industrial equipment against the invaders. Mining lasers became sniper weapons, or processing machinery became crushing traps. Even the ventilation system became a weapon when she flooded certain sections with gases that were harmless to humans but toxic to most alien physiology. By the second day, Nethcole found himself alone, his entire team of legendary hunters dead or disabled. The humans had picked them apart piece by piece, using the very environment that was supposed to trap the defenders as their greatest weapon. The final insult came when Major Foster appeared in the corridor ahead of him, weaponless, and apparently relaxed. "War Master Nethcole," Foster said politely, "I believe you're looking for us. Well, here we are." The enhanced warrior lunged forward with inhuman speed, cybernetic muscles propelling him faster than any human should be able to react. But Foster had spent years fighting in close quarters, where hesitation meant death. He sidestepped the attack and triggered one final trap, a section of floor that dropped the alien into a pit filled with mining equipment. The legendary Void Hunters, conquerors of 17 systems, had been systematically eliminated by humans, who treated impossible odds as just another day at the office. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at 3 in the morning. Council Standard Time. Representatives from 47 different species filled the great chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses. But beneath all the noise was something the council hadn't experienced in over 1,000 years. Genuine fear. Dr. Yekstani stood at the central podium, her tentacles trembling as she prepared to deliver the most disturbing report of her career. As the Council's chief xenobiologist, she had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy. She thought she understood the limits of biological evolution. The humans had proven her completely wrong. "Honored Council members," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber's translation systems. "I must inform you that our previous assessments of human capabilities were catastrophically inadequate. We have not been fighting a primitive species. We have been fighting the most perfectly evolved warriors in galactic history." The chamber erupted in protests and demands for explanation. Dr. Yekstani waited for silence before continuing. "Look at these physiological scans," she said, projecting holographic data into the center of the chamber. "Human cardiovascular efficiency is beyond anything we've seen. Their hearts pump with mechanical precision. Their lungs process oxygen at rates that would burst our respiratory systems. A human soldier can pursue enemies across entire continents without stopping to rest. Our forces need recovery periods every few hours. Humans can fight for days." Representative Kexner from the hegemony raised a claw. "Surely their primitive brains limit their tactical capabilities." Dr. Yekstani's response was grim. "Their pattern recognition abilities are beyond our current modeling capabilities. They don't just react to our tactics, they predict them. Human brains evolved to track dozens of variables simultaneously while hunting prey that could kill them instantly. They see patterns in our behavior that we don't even know we're creating." While the council debated in their secure chamber, Lieutenant Colonel Helen Foster was 3 systems away. Proving every word the doctor had spoken, Foster had been leading deep reconnaissance missions into Council territory for weeks now, using captured alien vessels that her tech teams had reverse-engineered with frightening speed. Her current target was a military installation on Kex Prime, supposedly protected by defensive systems that had never been breached in 3 centuries. Foster studied the base through her binoculars, noting patrol patterns and weapon placements. To most species, the defenses would seem impenetrable. To someone who had spent years infiltrating terrorist compounds in Earth's most hostile regions, it was just another puzzle to solve. The patrol timing is off by 30 seconds every fourth rotation, she whispered to her demolitions expert, Sergeant Amy Johnson. They're getting lazy. Probably haven't seen real action in decades. Within 6 hours, Foster's team had eliminated every strategic target on the base and vanished into space before the Council's response fleet could even be deployed. The humans had moved through defenses that were supposed to be foolproof, like they were walking through an unlocked door. But perhaps most disturbing too, Council observers, was what happened when Major Peter Davis encountered the Jextari species. On the Outer Rim, the Jextari communicated entirely through electromagnetic pulses, a method so complex that Council linguists needed years of study to achieve basic comprehension. Davis figured it out in 4 hours. Not only did he decipher their communication method, he started using it against them. Within a day, Davis was sending false orders through Jextari military channels, redirecting their forces into ambushes and causing entire fleets to attack each other in confusion. "How is this possible?" demanded the Jextari representative. At the next council session, "Our communication protocols were developed over millennia. They should be impossible for an alien species to crack." Dr. Yextani had an answer for that too. Human brains evolved to process multiple forms of communication simultaneously. They read facial expressions, body language, vocal tone, and environmental cues all at once. Cracking alien communication systems isn't difficult for them. It's just another survival skill. But the most terrifying aspect of human warfare wasn't their physical or mental capabilities. It was their psychological approach to combat. Captain Linda Clark had been carefully managing the survivors of each engagement, making sure that some enemy personnel always escaped to report back to their commanders. This wasn't mercy. It was calculated psychological warfare on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The survivors returned to their fleets with detailed accounts of human capabilities that seemed impossible to believe. Stories of human soldiers who moved through solid walls, who could see in complete darkness, who fought with wounds that would have killed any other species. The reports grew more elaborate with each telling, creating a mythology around human warriors that was almost supernatural. Council military psychologists began documenting what they termed Deathworlder syndrome among their troops. Soldiers, who had never shown fear in centuries of combat, were now suffering panic attacks at the mere possibility of facing human forces. Some units refused deployment orders entirely when they learned their missions might involve contact with Earth forces. "They don't fight like civilized beings," reported one traumatized Void Hunter survivor. "They fight like warfare is their natural state, like they were born to kill, and they enjoy it." This was perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. The Council species had developed their military capabilities out of necessity, viewing war as an unfortunate but sometimes required tool of diplomacy. Humans seemed to view combat as just another aspect of existence, approaching battles with the same casual efficiency they might use to prepare a meal. The strategic implications were staggering. For millennia, the Council had maintained peace through technological superiority and overwhelming force. If one species refused to comply with Council authority, they would demonstrate their power through surgical military strikes that ended conflicts quickly with minimal casualties. But humans didn't seem to understand the concept of surgical strikes or limited warfare. Every engagement escalated to maximum intensity immediately. They didn't capture territory or seek negotiated surrender. They eliminated threats completely and moved on to the next target. The Council was discovering that they had spent thousands of years perfecting techniques for fighting civilized wars against civilized opponents. Humans weren't civilized by galactic standards. They were something entirely different. Apex predators, who had learned to use technology as effectively as claws and teeth. Dr. Yextani concluded her report with a warning that would haunt council chambers for years to come. We are not fighting a species that learned warfare. We are fighting a species that is warfare. Every human is a weapon that their Deathworld spent millions of years perfecting, and now those weapons have learned to fly between stars. The age of easy council dominance was over. The humans had changed the rules of galactic conflict forever. Fleetmaster Kexavoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Galactic Dominance, watching the largest armada in council history spread across the void like a metallic constellation. 3,000 warships from 47 different species, each vessel bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize entire star systems, and all of it was aimed at one small blue world, spinning peacefully in the darkness. This ends today, Kexavoth declared to his assembled commanders. The holographic images of alien officers flickered around him, representing every major military force the Council could muster. No single species, no matter how savage, can stand against the combined might of galactic civilization. The Fleet Master had studied every report from the previous engagements. Yes, the humans had defeated isolated Council forces through ambush tactics and psychological warfare, but those had been small engagements, limited conflicts where human advantages in individual combat could make a difference. This was different. This was overwhelming force on a scale that would make resistance impossible. Remember, he continued, we're not here to negotiate or demonstrate. We're here to end the human threat permanently. Once their homeworld falls, their scattered colonies will surrender without further bloodshed. As the massive fleet approached Earth's solar system, Kexavoth felt confident that history would remember this as the day the Council finally brought peace to the galaxy by eliminating its most dangerous element. General Patricia Reynolds watched the alien armada approach through the tactical displays in her command bunker, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had been preparing for this moment since humanity's first contact with alien forces months ago. Reynolds had commanded joint military operations in every hostile environment Earth had to offer, from the burning deserts of Australia to the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, from the crushing depths of ocean trenches to the thin air of mountain peaks where most aliens couldn't even breathe. But this was different. This wasn't just about defending a territory or winning a battle. This was about proving that Earth's children could defend their home against any threat the galaxy could throw at them. Status report, she called to her staff. All defensive positions. Already, General, replied her aide, Colonel Jennifer Walsh. Brigadier Johnson's forces are in position in the Rockies. Colonel Thompson's mobile units are deployed across all major continents. The orbital defense platforms are online and waiting. Reynolds nodded grimly. The months since first contact had been a frenzy of preparation. Every military base on Earth had been expanded and fortified. More importantly, the planet itself had been turned into a weapon. The first wave of Council landing craft descended toward what their sensors identified as a standard mountain range in North America, expecting to establish a beachhead before pushing inland to population centers. Brigadier Mark Johnson watched them approach through his rifle scope, positioned in defensive emplacements that had been carved directly into the living rock. Johnson had grown up hiking and hunting in these mountains, back when they were just scenic wilderness. Now they were the ultimate fortress, honeycombed with tunnels and defensive positions that took advantage of every natural feature. The aliens saw mountains. Johnson saw a carefully prepared killing field that he had helped design. The moment the first Council dropships touched down, Johnson triggered the avalanche charges. The aliens had no way of knowing that human engineers had spent months identifying every unstable slope, every weak point in the mountain's geology, every place where a precisely placed explosion could bring down millions of tons of rock. What looked like natural terrain was actually a carefully orchestrated trap waiting to be sprung. Entire formations of Council forces disappeared under cascading stone and ice. The few survivors found themselves channeled into narrow valleys that lead directly to defensive positions manned by soldiers who had trained in exactly these conditions their entire lives. The underground complexes that the aliens discovered weren't natural caves. They were human engineering projects carved through solid granite, with the same determination that had built cities in deserts and settlements in Arctic tundra. Council forces found themselves fighting in tunnels designed by beings who treated impossible terrain as just another construction challenge. "They've turned their entire planet into a fortress," reported one, panicked Council commander, before his transmission was cut off by a carefully placed explosive charge. Colonel Rachel Thompson proved that the stories about human endurance weren't exaggerated when her mobile strike force began pursuing retreating alien units across 3 separate continents. While Council forces needed rest periods and resupply stops every few hours, Thompson's soldiers fought continuously for 72 hours straight, chasing enemy formations from the forests of Canada to the jungles of South America to the deserts of Africa. To most galactic species, such sustained combat would have been physically impossible. For humans who had evolved to persistence hunt prey across vast distances, it was just another Tuesday. "How are they everywhere at once?" demanded one alien commander, as human forces seemed to appear wherever Council troops tried to regroup. The answer was simple. Earth's soldiers knew their home planet in ways the invaders couldn't comprehend. Every forest trail, every mountain pass, every river crossing had been scouted and prepared. The humans weren't just defending territory, they were using their intimate knowledge of local terrain as a tactical weapon. As the massive invasion began to collapse into scattered, desperate attempts at survival, Fleetmaster Kexavoth made a final, fateful decision. Abandoning his command ship, he led his personal guard of elite warriors in a direct assault on what Council intelligence had identified as the human command center. The bunker complex should have been impregnable, even by Council standards, buried deep underground and protected by defensive systems that seemed impossible for primitive humans to construct. But Kexavoth's forces managed to fight their way through the outer defenses. Driven by desperation and the knowledge that failure meant the end of Council dominance, they found General Thomas Anderson waiting for them in the command center's main chamber. Anderson had spent 40 years in military service, fighting on every continent of Earth's deadly surface. He had led operations in places where the environment itself was more dangerous than any enemy force, volcanic regions that would melt alien equipment, polar zones that would freeze most galactic species solid, deep jungles filled with predators that Council zoologists classified as impossible nightmare creatures. The Fleetmaster's elite guard attacked with the fury of beings, fighting for the survival of their civilization. Anderson met them with the calm efficiency of someone who had been preparing for this exact moment his entire life. The battle was brief and decisive. When it ended, Kexavoth found himself disarmed and facing a human general who seemed as comfortable in combat as most beings were in peaceful conversation. "Fleetmaster," Anderson said politely, securing the alien commander with restraints designed for Council physiology. "I believe we need to have a conversation about the future, rather than executing his prisoner or demanding surrender." Anderson did something that would be talked about in Council chambers for generations. He healed Kexavoth's wounds, provided him with proper nutrition for his species, and prepared him for return to Council space. "Take this message back to your leaders," Anderson said, as the Fleetmaster was prepared for departure. "Earth claims no territory beyond our solar system, and we have no interest in conquest or expansion into your space. But we will defend our home and our colonies absolutely. Any species that threatens humanity will discover why nothing in galactic history has ever successfully invaded a Deathworld species." The survivors who limped back to Council space carried more than just a military defeat. They carried the knowledge that humanity represented something entirely new in galactic politics, a species that had no interest in domination, but possessed the capability to defend itself against any conceivable threat. The age of easy council expansion was over. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species of apex predators who had learned to fly between stars, and they had just announced that Earth was permanently off limits to conquest. The galaxy would never be the same.